It's just sleep deprivation. I feel like I'm half asleep right now. I think I chose the wrong hard. After saying choose your hard, I chose the wrong one.
Well, is there a right one?
There's a right one. I'm also really, I think, humbled and fascinated by how much people resonated with that message of choose your hard. I just feel like there's a commonality in the human experience that's beginning to show. And yeah, it's just to thank people and to also recognize that we all have something that we're dealing with. And it's a reflection for me of coming out on the other side of my own healing journey, which it's a journey, so there's still a long way to go.
And I think why that related with most people is because the best form of healing is when you know someone is going through or has gone through your experience.
Yes. Then you say, oh, it's not just me.
Yeah.
That is the biggest thing. And I think that's why it's been hard for me to come as myself for a very long time, because I'm a private person, but I really am reflecting on my current milestones. But one of the things I thought about the other day was this other side of healing that people may not often talk about. And that's when you feel like you're punished for healing. What I mean by that is I've experienced situations where it's almost like you're isolating emotionally and mentally to self-preserve. You're actually surviving. However, I made a note to let people in my life know, people who I love. I'd say, hey, listen, I feel like I need a minute because I feel overwhelmed with everything that I'm dealing with and going through. I don't want to talk about it because I still need to process it. So just understand it's not you, it's me. And that made a difference, right? Because you also don't want to ghost. But when you come up for air, Moss, number one, when you do tell people, some people understand, some people don't. That's the first thing. Some people take it personally, which is super odd because you've already told them it's not personal. The second thing that happens is when you come up for air, you'd be surprised at the people who punish you for trying to survive. They'll say things like, I've tried to reach you and I can't, and therefore I don't think I want to pursue this friendship. Like, didn't I just tell you? Or maybe I didn't communicate it to everyone because, again, you're surviving. But it's strange when people know you're dealing with something, but they still gaslight you for it. Am I making sense?
Yeah, and I think it's because, well, you might not have the opportunity to address everyone and, point out the issue you are coping with at that particular moment. But it's how they take it after you have explained what you've been going through. But if they're still being judgmental, I feel this comes from a place of lack of love.
Lack of love.
Yeah,
they didn't love you in the first place.
No. Like, spiritually speaking, it would be a spirit of rejection. They may be having that.
They felt like they were being rejected.
Rejected, yeah. So they are trying to fight it, like to fight that. But what have they been doing to try and understand you?
Whoa, what have they been trying to do to understand you? Because in many ways, when you do go into your healing moment or season or cocoon, it's true, some people will take it as you're rejecting me. And then another thing that I had to learn to do, which I do think is good advice, is to hold yourself accountable in
your contribution to the end of whatever you had together.
Thank you. Be accountable, because it always takes two parties, even though sometimes it's obvious that there's largely one person at fault, but you also have some accountability to take. So you end up going on a sorry tour. I went on a bit of a sorry tour, like, I'm sorry, but I meant it. I'm like, listen, I know that you feel like I stepped back, and I'm wondering if you have room for us to have coffee and talk about where I was coming from.
Yeah.
Some people will say no, some people will say yes. And I feel like that's the message I'm sending right now, is when you're healing and you come up for air, you'd be surprised that some people may still punish you for having stepped back to literally gather yourself and heal your brokenness. And they're still feeling like, but you weren't there when I needed you to reach out to me. But I like what you've said, which is, what did you do about it?
Yeah, and this, let's say, for example, it's about friendship.
Yes, it's usually a lot of it is about friendship.
Yeah.
Friendship breakups are brutal.
Yeah.
One day I'm going to talk about friendship breakups because so many people are experiencing, and the same heartbreak, it's the same as a romantic relationship. Sometimes it's even harder.
Yeah, and it's also the same when you lose anything or someone. Like, for example, someone who has lost a house. You don't just go and be like, oh, so what are you doing about your new home? Or what are you doing to get a new home? You know, you are scratching their wound, you know. It's the same thing that when someone has lost someone, you are not like, I hope you are well. Of course, you know they are not well.
Yeah.
So you'd rather keep quiet or show actions that would comfort them.
And not rub their wounds.
Yes.
So you're saying in the same way, if you know somebody has been dealing with something, either be quiet, or if you reach out, don't get to a place where you're adding salt to the wound
Yes.
by saying things like, I wish you well. You know, they do those HR, HR messages of, I wish you well in your future.
Yeah.
They HR you. And I'm like, Allah, sasa nimekukosea aje? Like you couldn't, I mean, I get it. Maybe you did feel like I was, I don't know, a version of ghosting you, but how about you try and say, listen, maybe you're dealing with something right now. I would like to connect with you. I feel like we haven't connected in a while. And then let it be. But this thing where you come at me or come at somebody.
I guess it's because most friends have presets. An expectation of that friendship. And that expectation is not communicated before a crisis. You only communicate your expectation after a crisis, and that's what breaks friendship. If we are friends, can we communicate our expectations in advance?
Umesikia You know what you've said is pretty powerful. I've never thought of it that way. I've never thought of it. I think now I'm forming some pretty healthy, beautiful friendships. I have to say that.
Yep.
There's a certain group of friends where we've set boundaries with each other, where we've communicated. This is how we communicate when we're unhappy with each other. So you saying it has actually made me realize, oh yeah, it's actually possible, but people don't do that.
Yeah, people don't do until a crisis happens.
And then everything
you don't
falls
know
apart.
Yeah, because you don't know how to deal with it. And also, not every friend you go for every crisis you have. There is appointed friend for family issues, business issues, because not everyone can be everything.
Emmanuel Acho did a video on that the other day. He said there's 5 people that you need in your life. I'll try to look for it, but I think he said the comforter, the confronter, the challenger, and 2 others. And he said those are 5 different people. It is not one person that you're expecting to find all these qualities, because then you're setting yourself up for failure, and it's expectations that won't be met. And I'm still trying to internalize. I just saw it briefly on my feed, and I thought, interesting. And I think it's what you're saying. You set all these expectations that Moss is my comforter and my challenger and my this and that. That was my expectation, but when things fell apart and I needed him, he wasn't there the way I thought, to comfort me, the way I thought he would.
Mostly it's because of comfort. Because when you're being comforted, it means there is a loss. And loss are unpredictable. It's not like a challenge whereby you're getting into a biashara and you need that particular person to challenge you to be the best version of you and also to make the right decisions in investment, perhaps. So there's a bit of room of adjustment. Unlike a loss, whereby it's abrupt.
And you just need to be comforted.
Yes, and then you expect them to come through for you. And then you don't, because you also may be fighting other things.
You've just made me realize that maybe even my outlook towards these situations was different.
Yeah.
I feel like now I'm at that place where human beings are complex. You cannot expect everyone to understand where you fully are. And you also cannot expect them to take you as you are. You're a different version of yourself to different people. I always say, in some people's story, you're the villain. In some people's story, you're the hero. And once you know that, you're able to show up at the best version of yourself with where you are in your life at that time. If you're still mending, mend. Not everyone will get that you're mending. Not everyone will get that you're mending. If you're able to have the ability to wake up every day and manage your expectations while still trying to show up as your best self, if it's achievable. And communicate them, thank you for saying that, then I feel like you begin to ease into life. I feel like easing back into life is its own story. Now you've come out a little bit of your isolation cocoon, you've reset. You're actually coming back into the world as a different person, because everything that you thought was true and was your truth, you've reset. And you were doing that while you were isolating or healing. But when you come out of a certain phase of healing, where you're able to face the world where you are, just understand that you may not find what you left behind. And then make peace with it, because it is painful.
And that season gives you clarity in terms of finding what works for you.
100%.
It's just like a normal disease. When you heal, you know this
You know
is
how to
what was
treat the
causing.
symptoms.
Yes.
That's a really good way of putting it.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's the other side of healing, folks. It's not what it's cut out to be. There's no right or wrong way, but I think the best thing you can do is
Manage expectations.
manage expectations, be kind to yourself, and understand that in some cases you'll have to hold yourself accountable. But whatever happens, it's a journey. So lean into it, be kind to yourself, and just walk the journey. That's it.